For most of my 20s, I believed if I just worked hard enough, I'd get rich. I worked 80-hour weeks for 4 straight years. I failed at 4 different businesses back to back. And by the time I was 22, I was $40,000 in debt, broke, and dealt with pretty bad depression and panic attacks. It wasn't until I threw out almost everything I believed about money that things actually started to change. Today, I'm worth over $5 million. I've made over $1 million from 4 different income streams that I've started, and I technically don't have to work another day in my life if I don't want to. And looking back at the younger, broke version of me, almost everything I believed about money and success was completely wrong. So in this video, I want to share you the 7 biggest ones, and I'm willing to bet you believe at least some of these right now. So belief number 1 is that hard work is the main thing that makes you rich. This was the first big lie that I bought into, and it cost me 4 years of my life. I grew up believing that if you just outwork everyone around you, you'd win. If you just grind harder, sleep less, hustle more, right? That was the whole formula. I grew up in Japan, and I think in Japan, they really preach this whole concept of just working harder, just grinding harder, and eventually you'll beat everybody else. You see that basically everywhere in media. Like I grew up, reading manga, comic books, right? Watching anime, and it's all about that. So that's what I believed in, and that's what I did. I worked 80-hour weeks. I tried business after business. I was working harder than anyone I knew. And yet I was going backwards financially. By 22, I was $40,000 in debt with nothing to show for it. So here's what I didn't understand back then is that hard work is essentially the entry fee. It's not the differentiator. Almost every broke person I know works hard. They work hard at jobs that pay them by the hour. They work hard at businesses with no leverage. They work hard at things that will never ever make them rich, no matter how many hours they put in. So everyone works hard, it's just that they work hard on the wrong things. What you work on matters 100 times more than how hard you work on it. So the moment I figured this out, everything changed. I stopped trying to outwork the problem, and I started asking a different question. What is the right thing to be working on in the first place? Once I picked a business with actual leverage, something where I could build an asset once and have it pay me forever, I actually started getting results. So the exact same person, me, exact same hours that I'm putting in, but the results were completely different. So the big lesson and a big takeaway here is that you want to choose your vehicle carefully. You want to carefully choose the method you're going to use to make money before you actually start. Because working hard at the wrong thing is the most expensive mistake you can make. And most people make the mistake for decades without even realizing it. The next belief I had is saving money is how you build wealth. This is the one your parents probably taught you, and yes, saving money is extremely important, being frugal is extremely important, but it's not 100% correct. I used to think that you could budget your way to wealth, right? Cut expenses, skip the vacations, don't buy the latte or basically anything you want. I lived extremely frugally, tracking every single dollar, and I thought that eventually I would save enough money to get rich. But if you do the actual math, it just doesn't work out that way. Because let's say you make $60,000 a year, which is the average income, and you save 20% of it, which means you're saving $12,000 a year. To get to $1 million purely from saving, ignoring investment growth and all that, because you're not investing, you're just saving, right? To get to $1 million, that's gonna take 83 years. Even if you do invest some money and let's say it starts compounding, you're still looking at 30 to 40 years to maybe hit your first $1 million. That's basically your entire working life. And that is, in my opinion, way too slow. Like, what's the point in retiring at 60 if you can't really enjoy your life because you have less energy, you got health issues and all that. So you can't save your way out of a middle class income on a normal timeline. The math just doesn't work. I don't know about you, but I don't want to sacrifice 30, 40 years just so I have 10 good years when I'm in my 60s that I'm still someone able to do things before I physically can't. I want to enjoy my life now while I'm still young and still have energy. Now, I do want to be clear here because I don't want anyone walking away thinking, saving money doesn't matter, right? It matters a lot. And spending like crazy without thinking about your future, that's also dumb as well. But saving money is very important only when it's paired with the other half of the equation, which is making a lot of money. So I'll give you a personal example here. When I first started making real money, like 6 figures a year, I was still living with 5 roommates, paying $700 a month in rent. This was in Hawaii in my early 20s. So you know how expensive rents can get, right? I was doing 6 figures and yet I was renting probably the cheapest place in Hawaii, in that area in Waikiki with 5 roommates. People thought I was insane. All my roommates that knew how much I was making is like, why are you still living here? Like, are you actually making 6 figures or are you just lying? Like, I got questioned a lot. But here's what was happening. I was stacking cash at a speed most people will never experience in their life because I had a pretty high income and I was being extremely frugal at the same time. And that combination is what actually builds wealth. It's not just income, it's not just about making a lot of money, but it's not just about frugality as well. You need both. Now, most people I see only have one, right? The frugal person who stays broke is the person who never grows their income. So even being frugal, they're saving pennies, because you can only save so much. On the other hand, though, the high income person who stays broke is the doctor or a lawyer making $300K a year, but they're spending $295,000 a year. The lifestyle inflation basically eats them alive. The people who actually escape the rat race are the ones who grow their income aggressively and stay frugal long enough to where you have enough money you can invest into assets that'll pay you for your lifestyle. So save your money, be frugal as hell, be minimalistic. I think it's very, very important and it's actually going to be very good for you, but you have to increase your income. You need that if you want to truly be free at a much faster rate than basically everyone else. So belief number 3 is that a school and a good job are the safe path. This one is the most expensive belief in society right now, and almost nobody questions it. I do feel like nowadays people are starting to question it more and more, which is good. But the story we get told is you want to get the degree, get the job, climb the corporate ladder, retire at 65. And that is a safe path. Anything else is risky. But it's actually completely backwards. The world doesn't work like this anymore. Maybe back in the days, but now it's like completely different, and I think more and more people are starting to realize this. A job is the highest risk financial path most people will ever take. You have one income source. It's controlled entirely by someone else. It can disappear with a single email. And these days, it often does. So you spend 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars on a degree to qualify for a job that an AI tool might be able to do in 18 months, and people call that safe. The safety of a job is a story that we tell ourselves because you don't really see the risk until it actually happens. On the other hand, entrepreneurship feels risky because the risk is basically visible every single day. You see how much hours you put into it without getting results back. You see how much money you're investing into the business. So that's what I mean by, risk is visible. But the thing is, these risk is controllable, right? You can fix what's wrong. You can't fix being laid off at 47 with one skill that's been outsourced. So to be completely honest, I am extremely grateful and extremely lucky to not go to college. I think choosing not to go to college was the single best decision I ever made. I almost joined the military and I actually was going to swear in very, very soon until I got injured. And then I had another date to swear in, and then I got injured again. And before I swear in officially, I found entrepreneurship. And that's the path I've been chasing since age 18. But for the first 4 years, I failed. I went $40,000 in debt. I didn't make any money for the first 4 years, and I still would go through this path. If you ask me, would you go back and do the same thing? Yes, I would go through this path. Because while my friends who were spending those same 4 years, racking up 80K or 100K in student debt to qualify for jobs that would pay them 50K a year and could fire them at any time, I was building real skills. I was failing a lot, but I was also learning a lot. By 22, I started actually making money online. By 26, I became a millionaire, while most of my friends were still trading time for money. And I hear stories like this all the time. People who did everything right, got the degree, got the job, climbed the ladder for 20 years, and they get laid off in their 40s or 50s with no transferable assets, no business, no skill anyone outside the company wanted, and a mortgage they can't pay. So I truly believe that the most important thing you can have right now is the ability to learn new skills fast, because things are changing rapidly, especially with AI, man. Things are changing so fast nowadays. So it's not about what you know at the moment. It's about how quickly can you learn new things when things change, because things will always change faster and faster as technology improves. So you have to be able to constantly adapt if you don't want to get left behind. In my opinion, the riskiest thing you can do is to build a life where one person's decision, like your boss, your CEO, maybe an AI replacing your role, can absolutely destroy your finances overnight. So belief number 4 is rich people are lucky, or they had advantages that I didn't. So this is something that I started hearing more and more as I started, teaching people how to make money, how to be successful, started making YouTube videos like this. I do see comments like that. And this is a comforting lie that, broke people tell themselves, because it removes the responsibility for basically why they're in the situation they're in. And I used to believe this too, for a little while. I look at a successful person and be like, yeah, of course he made it. Their parents helped. They had connections. They got lucky with timing. They were in the right place at the right time, whatever reason that is. Now, I'll be completely honest here. I'm not going to deny the factor of luck. Like, luck definitely plays a role, but I would say it's like 10% of any success. And that could be, being at the right place, starting a business at the right time, having the right person walks into your life. Whatever that is, yes, luck exists. I personally experienced luck in my own success as well. But again, that's like 10%, 5 to 10%. The other 90% comes down to consistency. And that's the part that nobody wants to hear. So the reality is most people cannot stick to literally anything. They cannot stick to a workout routine for 90 days. They can't stick to a diet for 90 days. They can't stick to a business idea for 90 days. They basically jump from one thing to another thing to another thing, looking for the one that's easy or guaranteed, and they wonder why nothing ever works. From being in entrepreneurship for over 10 years, meeting a lot of successful people, what I notice is that the people who succeed are obsessed. I mean, genuinely obsessed, right? And what I mean by obsessed is, when you're taking a shower and your shower thoughts, the subconscious thoughts that floods into your brain and your mind's wandering, if those shower thoughts are about how to make more money, how to build your business, how you can improve and optimize your business so that you can make more money, that's when you know that you are on the right track, right? If you cannot sleep because you're getting business ideas and you're excited about working on your business, or you wake up and the first thing you're thinking is, oh, I have to do this thing in my business, or I want to do this, then you're on the right track. Although it's horrible for mental health, I'll completely acknowledge that. It's not good because some days you cannot sleep. But at the same time, that's a common trait that I see is like those who are really, really successful, most of them have at least a period of going through something like that. So if your shower thoughts are about how to make more money, I think you're on the right track. If your shower thoughts are about, what's on Netflix tonight or what you're going to eat, for dinner, that's also fine. Just understand that it's going to be a lot harder for you to be rich and you have to stop pretending that the reason is luck. I personally had no connections, no family money, no mentor. I was 40K in debt at 22. I didn't have any particular skill. I'm from Japan, right? I didn't even speak English properly. It's my second language. But there was one thing that I truly feel lucky that I had all my life, and that's that I was obsessed. When I start something, I only think about absolutely mastering that thing. So when I decided that I wanted to get rich, I decided that I will master the game of money. And that was age 18. And I've been obsessed ever since. So I don't think that's luck. Maybe I was lucky that I had that obsessive trait in me, ever since I was young. So yes, that was luck. But the work that I put in after that, I don't think that's luck. So the belief that rich people are just lucky is a really nice way to cope. Because if you believe success is mostly luck, then you pretty much got an excuse on why you're not successful. If success was actually not about luck, then now you gotta admit that maybe the problem is you. And not a lot of people wanna do that. All right, belief number 5 is money will make me happy. So this one is harder for me to talk about, but it's probably the most important one in this video. For most of my 20s, I had a number in my head. If I hit it, I'd feel different. That's what I thought, right? If I hit $1 million or $2 million, I'll be happier because I was a pretty stressed out kid. I was pretty depressed. I mean, I'm getting much better, but I still kind of deal with it sometimes, right? So I thought that once I hit that number, the stress would go away. The anxiety would go away. I'd finally feel like I'd made it. I would be content. First, that number was 10K per month. I think a lot of people can relate to the 10K per month number. Then it was having 100K in the bank account. Then once I hit that and I still was feeling anxiety, stresses and that, the next number was $1 million net worth. Then $3 million net worth. Then $5 million net worth. And every time I hit those milestones, I was happy, not gonna lie, but the happiness and the length of how long you are happy after hitting your goals decreases over time. And the problem you already had before hitting the milestone basically comes back. Hitting that financial number didn't really fix any of it. However, I do acknowledge that money-related stress is like way down. Money-related worries, way down, of course, because money fixes money problems, right? So the anxiety, stress, all that related to money, way down. But I still feel anxiety, stress, all that outside of money, right? So, that's not gonna go away. So if you're stressed because you can't pay rent, money fixes that. If you're stressed because you hate your job, money fixes that as well. If you're stressed because you don't have options, money fixes that. So yes, pretty much all of my money related stress is gone, which is huge because I used to be super stressed about money. What money does not fix though is your relationships, your sense of identity, your purpose, whether you actually like yourself, whether the people around you actually love you or just love what you provide. That's something that you got to figure out yourself outside of making more money. So honestly, hitting the financial number and feeling the same thing after hitting it is kind of disorienting. It's a pretty interesting experience because you spend years, sometimes decades, telling yourself that once I hit this, things will change, right? Once I get this, things will change. And then it doesn't. And now you're kind of asking yourself, then what am I supposed to do? Right? A lot of people spiral at that point and they just go and chase a bigger number, thinking the first one was just too small. Then they hit that and they feel nothing again. And so they go and chase more and more. So it's basically like a treadmill. And the treadmill never ends. With that being said, though, chasing goals, keep creating new goals is a good thing, if it's healthy. So I'm not mocking that. I don't think it's bad. But I think what's important is to understand that once you hit that goal, no matter what that is, you're probably going to feel good for like a couple minutes and then it's just going to go back to being normal again. And you just got to be okay with that. You just got to be okay with the game of just constantly creating new goals. So is the answer not to chase money? Because even if you hit your financial goals, you're not going to be happier, most likely? No. I think that's pretty stupid. I think people who use that as a reason to not make money is, again, coping, using that as an excuse. Because money is super important and everyone should strive to have more. But you want to chase it for the right reason, right? Chase it for the freedom that it gives you. Chase it for the options. You want to chase it because being able to say no to things that you don't want to do is one of the best forms of wealth. You just don't want to chase it expecting to change who you are because it's not going to. The person who arrives at the destination is the same person who started the journey, just with more money in their bank account, which is really nice, but it's not the end all be all. So belief number 6 is once I make it, I can stop. And this one I'm still working on, to be honest. For a very long time, I believed that there was a finish line. Right? You want to work hard for X amount of years, you hit a financial number that you can retire, and then you just retire and coast. You travel, you relax, go watch the sunset, the whole thing. But here's what I've learned. There's really no finish line, in my opinion. And the people who do stop completely are often miserable. There are studies out there that talks about how you're more likely to die once you retire completely because you lose your purpose or something like that. So having identity, purpose, structure in your, day-to-day, meaning a lot of those comes from work, from building things, from having something to wake up for. So if you take that away and you have a guy with money and nothing to do, that combination is often not that good. I've seen it happen a couple times. I've watched friends who sell businesses. They technically retire at age 35 or something. And within a year, they're depressed. They're drinking too much and they're back to looking for the next thing to build because, what are you going to do for the rest of your life for the next 60 years or so? With that being said, I think the other extreme is also unhealthy. So that is when you have enough money, but you're still working like crazy. Working 80 hours a week when you don't need to, thinking about business 24/7, never switching off. You made enough money. You don't have to do that, but you still do, and you call it ambition or leaving a legacy or some shit like that. I don't know if that's winning either. I think that's just being addicted to work and calling it ambition. I think, you're addicted to the dopamine you get from building a business, which is fine because, as humans, we're all addicted to dopamine. And we're all just chasing dopamine in one form or another. But I'm trying to be more mindful of this myself as well. Just basically trying to work less, enjoying life more, being present for things outside of business. And honestly, it's kind of hard because, as I said earlier, you have to be obsessed to be successful. In my opinion, if you want to achieve massive success, in a short period of time, you have to be very obsessed. So you have to develop this habit of thinking about work all the time, constantly, right before you sleep, right after you wake up, when you're taking a shower, when you're just not doing anything, you're always thinking about what can I do right now to make more money? And although that is amazing, if you're trying to make more money, that habit is very hard to switch off once you've been doing that for like a decade. So oftentimes I catch myself on a vacation, being on a beach somewhere, and my brain is still thinking about a business problem. It's just hard because for me too, I get more dopamine hits from building the business than laying on the beach. And that's why I think work is important. If work, gives you more joy, then why not just do that? But I also get insomnia from thinking about work right before I sleep, right? And sometimes I cannot sleep and it affects my health. So yeah, it's a balance. It's tricky. It's hard to switch off. That's basically the takeaway here. So I think both extremes are unhealthy, right? Completely stopping is unhealthy, but being a permanent workaholic is also unhealthy. The answer is always in the middle, right? Having a balance. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. So in my opinion, you don't want to optimize your life for retirement, but also you don't want to optimize for grinding until you die either, because what's the point? You want to optimize your life for work that you choose to do at a pace that doesn't destroy you. I think that is the ideal balance. Belief number 7 is big risks lead to big rewards. And I think this is a pretty interesting one. I think a lot of people believe in this. I used to believe in this as well. The way to get rich was to take huge swings. Basically going all in, taking huge risks, right? Mortgage the house, start the company, quit the job with no savings and just figure it out. Burn the bridges, essentially. Going all in financially, and that's exactly how I got in $40,000 in debt. Because I invested my life savings, plus I borrowed $40,000 in credit card debt to start a business, and I basically failed. And that was a crazy time. I had some crazy panic attacks during the time. So here's what I've learned about entrepreneurship, making money, and taking risks. I think taking risk is very, very important. I want to be very clear with that, right? You cannot build wealth without taking some risk. The person who never risks anything never builds anything. And that is absolutely true. But there are different types of risk, right? And what I used to believe is that you have to do this huge all in, all or nothing risk if you want to be successful. And I'm talking about like financially. So you have to go all in, obviously with your time too, but invest a lot of money into building a business. And if you just keep working hard in it, then the universe would just align. If you just keep pushing forward, eventually it'll work out, like a law of attraction thing. And that is exactly how I got into $40,000 in debt, because I kept pushing without having a clear plan. I was just working hard, dumping my time and money into this business that was failing, thinking eventually somehow, the universe will align and, turn back around. But I don't think that is the best way. The people who actually build wealth take small bets repeatedly over time. So if you fail, the downside is capped. You lose a little bit of money, you lose a little bit of time, but if you succeed, the upside is uncapped, right? And you can make as much money as possible. And successful people take a lot of these bets over years. So my whole business was built that way, at least the successful ones. I didn't make one massive bet and get rich. I made hundreds of small bets, right? I have a digital product business. So I created these small digital products and I uploaded them one product after another. And I learned what worked, also learned from what didn't work. I doubled down on what worked, I killed what didn't, and I just kept going from there, stacking my digital products and kept making more and more money. No single product made me rich, but the overall volume of all these digital products stacking up over 10 years is what made me rich, right? So if these little digital products, do not make money, then I will lose a little bit of time that I invested and a little bit of money that I invested in creating these. But again, it's not my life savings, right? It's not a lot of money, so it's okay. But if these digital products do succeed and it starts making money and it works, oftentimes it makes you a lot of money for a very long time. So the upside, once again, is uncapped. And I just made a lot of those small bets over the years. And I think that is a better approach. It's the same as investing. Small, consistent buys over a long period beats the guy who tried to, time the market, do this one huge move into like a single stock, when it's just better to just buy the overall stock market and just forget about it. Although this is not investment advice, I do a lot of investing and it worked out really well for me too. So the all or nothing bet, gets glamorized because it makes a really good story and you hear that all the time on social media and stuff. But for every person who basically bet everything and won, there are 99% of people you've never heard that lost money doing the same thing. So what I recommend is you want to take risks. You want to take a lot of them. Just make sure that the downside is something that you can survive and the upside is uncapped. So if you pull all 7 of these beliefs together, there's actually one common thread. And that is that the conventional advice about money, working hard, save aggressively, get a safe job, retire at 65. I think that advice is not malicious. It's not bad. It's just old advice that doesn't apply to, what's happening right now. It's designed for a average outcome, right? If you just want a normal life, I think it can still work, although times are changing. And I think that model is slowly dying. But what nobody talks about is, saving and investing can only do so much. If you want to retire at age 65, yes, you can do the slow and steady route. You can save 15 to 20% of a normal income, invest it in index funds, and 35 years later, you'll be a millionaire, right? That's what everyone says on all the investing videos, personal finance videos that you watch. Everyone talks about that. Just invest $500 a month or something in an index fund. 40 years later, you'll have $1 to $2 million. And although I'm a huge believer in saving and investing into index funds and, having it compound, I do the exact same thing. But my question is, yes, maybe in 40 years or 35 years, you'll get to $1 million. But how much would that $1 million be worth 35 years from now? With all the inflation that's happening, with all the money printing, the purchasing power getting weaker, like realistically, $1 million is probably not going to be enough or a lot, right? You need a lot more than that, which means you have to invest a lot more than that. And with an average salary, that's going to be tough. Again, you can only save so much. So if you want to retire fast, if you want financial freedom in your 30s or 40s instead of your 60s or 70s, saving alone is never going to get you there. The math just doesn't work. You have to make a lot of money. You have to dramatically increase your income so you can save aggressively so that you can go and invest that money into assets that compound over time. And that's how you can accelerate your goal of getting to financial freedom. And in my experience, the best way by far to dramatically increase your income is to build a business. Not a side hustle, not a second job, a real business. A real business with leverage, where you're not trading hours for dollars and where the income can scale beyond what any job will pay you. So if you want to know which business I think is the best one to build right now, especially if you're starting from scratch with no audience, no following, and no huge upfront capital, I already kind of talked about it earlier, but I think digital products is the best way. I think it's the most beginner-friendly way. And out of all the businesses that I've tried, after failing in so many different businesses, digital products is what worked for me. So that's why I believe in it a lot. And out of all the digital product businesses, I think digital publishing is the best way because, again, that's the business that I've had massive success in, and that's what I teach. It's how I built my net worth. It's how my students have built theirs. And it's a way to build the product once and get paid forever if you do it right, of course. So if you're curious about how that works, I made a full free tutorial walking through exactly how it works step by step. There are no fluff, no sales pitch, just the actual step-by-step breakdown. So if you want to check it out, this is the video. My editor will pop up the thumbnail, but I'll also leave a link in the description below. Go check it out if you're interested. And let me know in the comments, which of these 7 beliefs that you relate to, if you do relate to any of this. Did you learn something? Was it interesting? Do you disagree with me? If so, let me know in the comments because I do read all the comments. Also, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's the best way to let me know that you enjoy these videos, which is how I determine if I want to make more videos like this or not. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.